Good afternoon, folks, and Gemara Chatima Tova. I hope you're having a meaningful Yom Kippur. Thank you for joining us during Yom Kippur. Thank you for watching these films as part of the Forgive Me Film-a-thon. This is my synagogue right here, and I think film for me is really how to have impact and change and really reflection. So, I mean, literally, I think film in many ways is a form of reflection. So, I think it's very relevant to this day and a great way to do it. And a lot of people have come on board with this concept during the pandemic, but even before, of finding alternative ways to honor this day and to make this experience as meaningful as possible. And I'm really excited to have here the director of Love and Stuff, Judith Helfand. Thank you so much for being here and for joining us today.
It's my privilege.
And this was an easy choice. Sometimes it's a stretch to bring in the folks that relate to the topic of Yom Kippur, of the different topics of Yom Kippur. But I think we both agreed very quickly that there are many direct connections here between your film and Yom Kippur. The other film that we showed was Till Kingdom Come, that has very different connections to it, and we'll be showing that one also in person. We showed Judith's film in person a couple of weeks ago at the JCC, and we'll be showing Till Kingdom Come in person tomorrow night. So you can have that experience too, because I truly believe, with all of the benefits of virtual watching, the communal experience of watching a movie, especially a movie like Judith's film, is irreplaceable. And I hope people really start thinking about which films they see together, because it's sometimes about that community and seeing it together, even if you have a great screen at home.
Sure.
But of course, Love and Stuff is available in other forms virtually, and will be. And POV still has it online at this point.
Yep, POV will be streaming it till December 4th, I think.
So you can refer people that way if they can't find an in-person screening. Judith, let me start by asking you, why did you want to make this film?
Why did I want to make this film? I mean, I have to say, some films want to be made and some films are believed into being. And this film wanted to be made. It spoke to me from the moment I felt somewhat reticent, yet sure that I should pick up my camera and start to use it to spend the last, either a couple of weeks or a couple of months with my mother, and, use the iPhone to document some of our conversations, to my inviting, the most professional cinematographer that I know to come into our house, my mother's house, and film me and my brothers going through the stuff, and then actually turn the stuff into, gorgeous, almost gorgeous kind of artwork, and to almost anthropomorphize the stuff and how it starts to speak to you about the people that you love, and sort of bake all those memories into it in such a way. So I think that the movie was kind of calling to me, this is going to be really hard, Judith. This is going to be hard for you to be alone. This is going to be really tough. And at the same time, you think you're alone with the end of your mother's life, but you're not really alone. You are doing what millions of people have done before you, and millions of people will do after you. You're doing what your mother has done with her mother. So this is very familiar, and maybe the best thing that you could do, or we could do, which is the movie talking to me, is let's not hoard all this pain. This is this is not the stuff to be discarded or to be hidden away or to be hoarded or just to be collected. This is the stuff to share. This is the universal moment that everybody has to walk through and do for somebody, if they're lucky, if they're really lucky, they get to help them die. They get to help someone they love die. And so, invite other people in, because either they've done it and they need to think about it again, or they need to think about how they will do it. And you can give them a primer that's filled with love, and it might help you and your mother talk to each other before she dies. So those were like all the things that the movie was saying to me. It was like inviting me, I think, kind of like the way a Torah invites people to go to shul every week or continue to come back to the holidays, and sort of says, well, these stories all took place a really long time ago, but you are continuing to have them and you continue to live them out. And so keep coming back and keep reading and turn this into the story you needed to understand it the way you need to. That's what we're here for. And I think that's what these rituals are in a way. They're even the ritual of helping somebody die, and the ritual of remembering them, the ritual of keening and pining for them, and feeling like you're never ever going to be able to get over it. And then the feeling of one day, you know what, I miss them, but it's not as bad as it was 2 months ago, and it's different, and they're kind of with me now. Like, I think that all those rituals kind of talk to us, and that this movie talked to me the way the best Jewish rituals talk to all of us.
So that lets me to really dive right in, I think, to the connections. And I mean, we talked about this a little bit, of making this connection, of course, on Yom Kippur to the Yizkor service. And the Yizkor service in Yom Kippur, it's a really interesting thing. Both of my parents are alive. Luckily, my siblings are alive too. I've never attended Yizkor service. And Yizkor to me was always that thing when I was forced to go to synagogue as a kid, of when I got to go play outside. And it was like this, in a way, and this is actually one of the things I love about this film, putting it out there. It was this hidden secret from the kids, right? And you don't hide.
Oh my God, I remember I used to wonder, like, what, like they would push us out, and then the big doors would close, and those guys who were like the machers, who were always the machers, who were like the greeters and stuff, they were like, shh, and I was like, what do they do in there? Like, I couldn't imagine, and then I was like, Mommy, do people cry? Do they wail? Do they weep? Do they throw themselves on the floor? Like, what happens during Yizkor? Like, I was dying to know, but I don't know. It's true.
Tell
It was like,
me, I still don't know. I haven't been.
it's you know what? It's the club that you're so glad that you don't belong to, and then you do, and then I hate to say this, but it's like, this is it. I'm just, I don't know. Does anybody look? There's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 10 of us. We have a minion. This is so perfect.
Yeah.
So, can anybody write into the chat what you really think Yizkor is? Like, did any of you have the same kind of experiences that we did growing up? Like, what is it? Okay, the chat is not blowing up on this one. Okay.
But everybody related to the film, and so Yizkor, as I mean, literally, of course, means to remember, and to take this time on Yom Kippur, the holiest of days, to remember those who have passed, who are close to us. I think, of course, your film is a living document, and is a way to remember. It is a way of keeping someone's soul alive in some ways, and film does that, actually, I gotta say, in an extremely profound way. I'm sure for you, watching the film and seeing your mother is a real impactful.
Well, it actually did. I mean, when I was having trouble, like, figuring out what to do with the things, part of that was because I knew that I didn't really know if I was going to truly adopt a child. I mean, I really felt like, okay, I probably lost my chance. And my mother's right, like doing it right afterwards. I mean, right after someone's gone, you're in this other space, like physically and emotionally and metaphysically, and just your DNA feels changed. It's like, you really are. And grief is a very visceral and physical thing. And I was sort of relieved. I mean, okay, I don't have this new baby coming. I don't have a baby coming. In fact, I'm not throwing my hat back into the ring until I've like really grieved for like 6 months, and then I'll throw my hat back in. But boy, like, do I really think like, when I'm 4 months shy of 50 or 3 months shy of 50, baby's gonna come? Like, I might have lost this. So, but that said, choosing the things to keep and to hold on to, and obviously there were so many that I couldn't make that choice, and it was too hard, and we just needed to get out of the house. So then I brought a lot of it home. Especially once Theo arrived in my life, those things really did mean like, can I use this to introduce Theo to her grandparents? Like, is there enough stuff? Is there enough life? Are there enough stories? Are there enough stories that I know? Is there enough life experience that I witnessed or was told to me that can come through, these candlesticks, that make these candlesticks something that I can bring, my parents to life, my grandparents, my great grandparents, her grandparents to life for her. And so there was a really big thing. What I hadn't thought was that the actual movie, that the text of the movie and the audio of the film and the watching your mother, okay, your daughter watching her mother, me, watching this movie over and over and over in many iterations on my laptop for all the years of her life. Since it's there was a camera in our house, and she grew up kind of like with a crew and talking to people. And, one of her early words was definitely camera. You saw that, my camera, my camera. When she started walking, as soon as she could walk, she started walking backwards. And I said, what are you doing? And she says, shooting. So she really understood what that all was. But she heard like her grandma and her grandpa, like she heard their voices and she saw them, and I would say, oh, that's your puppy, that's your puppy, that's your puppy. So it wasn't just the stuff that has become alive for my kid, so much so that she could say, hey, you know who that egg slicer was? She's like, I know, you told me already, right? Like, it's enough, I know whose it is. Like, I love that she's so familiar that she could tell me to shut up. Like, that's really cool, right? That means it's like, this is alive, this is real. But she is like pretty much memorized this movie. It's like the Rocky Horror Picture Show for Theo. And she could do her lines, she could do my mother's lines, and I think this has become like how she knows my parents. So that has been an unexpected gift. Like, this, I thought it was the stuff that was going to be the thing that she really got to know them through. And it has really been this movie. And she hasn't seen the other movies yet, but this movie quotes so many of those other films. And so I don't know if that answers your question in an interesting way, but does it?
Of course.
Sorry, I'm a little circular today. Anyway, but to draw me back in if I get lost, okay.
But I find that the film really, what Love and Stuff does is also it gives us a little bit of a connection, of a way to talk about grief, it opens that door and allows us to talk about things that we possibly normally would not talk about in a very open way. And I really appreciate that. It's often not explored in film, and not enough in film.
You mean that the idea of talking about grief and finding ways to talk about it and be with it is not often referenced?
Not often referenced, and definitely not in this way, and explored also specifically through, as the title is, Love and Stuff, and through these spiritual connections and the ways that we can remember and can stay connected, and what really matters there. And for somebody to open to watch this movie you're opening a door for them to get into this conversation that we're often trying to avoid, I think.
Well, that's the goal of the engagement that we're trying to do with the movie, that I'm really committed to doing at least for the next year, which is to use the film certainly, you know, in the way that we're doing right now, and as much as possible in the way that we did on the 20th or the 21st when we showed it in person. Um, I mean, I have to tell everyone, and I can't thank you enough, Isaac, to sit in that room, especially a room filled with New Yorkers, and especially obviously a lot of people that I knew, and to finally to hear people laugh, like in sync with the movie, in response to, and to get all the jokes and even the small ones and the inferences, and my mother, and it was so great. And you know, we really do make movies. Obviously, we make movies for television, sure, but all of us, especially independent filmmakers, we make movies for people to watch them together, and hope that, you know, it's one thing to watch the movie, it's another thing to watch it with others, it's another thing to like hear lots of people laugh all the same thing at the same time, or to gasp or to cry. And I think that that's like it's a very different kind of experience, and it's edifying. It makes you realize, okay, I am part of a community, I am part of a moment, I am part of a culture, I'm part of a I'm part of a region that gets this joke in a way that another region might not get this joke. You know, like, I don't know. I mean, maybe everybody will get the babka joke, but you know, it's it's pretty funny, the idea that like we bring food and we think it's so unique, and then we get like the very very best one, and then it's gonna make you feel better, and it's like, you know, it's like all of it's just there's so many layers, right? It's like is the food going to make you feel better? Is the brand going to make you feel better? Is the act of you doing this thing which has been done for generations and generations and generations? Except, you know, really Orthodox people, they don't bring food. You know, it's like the only people that eat are the mourners, and they eat privately, like in another room. The only thing that you often see are going to be like the little pushka, and like, here, please put money to this thing that my loved one loved, but beloved one loved or cared about. Anyway, so yeah, so thank you so much for letting me have that experience. I hadn't had it for like, I hadn't had it. I hadn't had it because the movie came out in 2020, and it basically went straight to film festivals, and I did all of these Q&As. Every Q&A I did on Zoom by myself in the kitchen. And I got really depressed, and I could not figure out like, what is it that is, I mean, obviously there's so much to get depressed about, but like, what is it? And I was actually having grief over I was mourning the fact that I did not get to watch this film in community with others. I built it specifically for that. And then to not have that, and then to also have like all these rejections from certain film festivals that you think are so important, and you think to yourself, you watched it by yourself in a room when you didn't hear one other person laugh, you were stressed out, you had 90 other movies to watch, like you really could not figure out what this movie meant. And you know, I don't mind the no. I just feel like your no was not in context and you don't get it. And so to finally show the film like at the JCC of all places, which is such a big part of the movie, as you could see, and the neighborhood and the panel and Rabbi Diane Kohler SS cackling behind me because she got every joke. And then she spoke on the panel. It was the best. It was so great. But in terms of engagement, I'm trying to replicate those feelings and that experience, and bring it on a tour of JCCs around the country, with the idea that the JCCs can be a hub, but kind of an interfaith hub. And I really want to do more than just have a lovely discussion afterwards. And I do want to hear from all of you. So I'm going to be quiet very soon. But because I even got the feeling that if we had had more time, Isaac, like, and if we had said to everybody, buckle up, this is a 3-hour tour. So, or something like that, you know, kind of like
Gilligan's Island.
Gilligan's Island, right? Yeah. And you're gonna watch the movie, and then instead of having the Q&A, we're gonna all go into the lobby, and we're gonna raise a l'chaim, and we're gonna have some of that Schlivovitz or whatever. We're gonna have some babka, and and we're going to have an interactive conversation, and we're going to sit in a circle. So we're not just like looking at Judith. We're going to be able to see each other. We'll be safe. And then we're going to have people self-select. It's like, if you want to go to a group of people who are trying to deal with stuff, then you get to go with that group. And if you, are lucky enough to still have your parents, and you're trying to figure out, how do I use a stuff review and do this thing that Judith and her mother are sure is going to make everybody feel better and engender the conversation that's so hard to have, then you could go over there. And if you're an older parent and you're trying to figure out, how do I build community around me and my child or my children, and how do I stop counting how many years we have in front of us and just try to really be present, and what does that mean? You go over there. And then, and then maybe, after all of that, we'll come back and we could have more of a conversation about like what you just learned and what you've been thinking about. And if we were really smart, we would bring, oh God, what is it called? Dress for Success. And we would let everybody know ahead of time, if you have your mother's beautiful suits and you don't know what to do with them, or you have some of this great clothing and someone else could go to work with it, please come here and we will collect your story. And we will, like I say in the movie, like, she's not in the skirt, she's not in the skirt, but we could put your mother's story in the skirt. And then when somebody who's like a returning citizen and got out of prison, or got out of some kind of program and is going to finally go out into the job market, they're going to have somebody like Florence Helfand, whisper in their ear, like, I didn't go to college. I was really embarrassed, but I took that civil service test and got to be a librarian assistant. And then I got to work in schools, and I basically was the librarian without getting paid, but it's okay. I had a great union, and that union gave me healthcare for the rest of my life and gave me so much mobility and independence. And I loved my job, and I loved what I was able to do for myself. And so you go out with your right foot forward and you wear that suit, and I'll be there with you. And I guarantee you that's my mother speaking through me, but she would have loved it if I had done that with her suits. So I feel like we have an opportunity with this film to like kind of create a package for the kind of JCCs like ours here, who have programming for every generation and phase of a family's life, who could use this movie and those very specific ways to help everyone have the conversations they need to have and do what matters. So that's my vision for the film. And I think it would be a way for the Jewish community to be able to extend itself to the non-Jewish community, with a film that would be meaningful for lots of people. So that's what I'm trying to do with it over the next year.
It's beautiful and amazing. I think that I mean, we see here even from the chat that it resonates so much, and it is a movie that needs to have a conversation, and there's so many places to take it. And I think it's true about, like, that's how we should treat all films, and not just like, it's on the screen, see you later, but talk about how this is impacted, where it relates, where it resonates, and dive into that babka as deeply as possible. I do thank you for opening this to the audience, and folks, we want to make you a part of this conversation. So just to do this in a little bit of an orderly manner, if you raise your hand or click on the raise hand option, we can call on you and hear your thoughts. Find your way of turning this into your own youth score, or just asking your question if you have. And you don't have to be shy.
Gila.
Hi, I loved the film. My question is about how does it feel when you bring the camera out in an intimate moment? And because oftentimes I'll be in a moment with my family and thinking, oh, I'd love to capture this. But when you turn on your smartphone, it seems to change things. What can you say about overcoming that, or just do it anyway? Or you must have encountered that feeling.
I do. I still encounter it. it's still a little uncomfortable. I mean, depending who it is. I mean, my parents and I had many years. We had 25 years of practicing. So, and that's because when I was 25, I had this cancer due to my mom having taken this drug, DES, diethylstilbestrol, when she was pregnant with me. And so I kind of explained to them, like, hey, I brought this camera home with me, and I'm probably going to document some of our conversations, and I'm going to document things that I'm feeling, because I don't know how to navigate this. And I'm so miserable, and you're miserable. And, you know, I want to remind us that our pain or my mourning or my grief over the children that I always fantasized about having biologically, which I'm not going to have, which I'm in terrible grief over, which my mother really did not want to connect with. It was too painful for her. But, you know, I said, like, I don't know what else to do. So if I bring out the camera, just do it with me, because I'm beside myself. Like, I need to talk with you, and we need to be with each other. And it's hard to be with each other, but it's kind of easier if the camera's here. Cause, like, I don't know. It's like, I had whatever I said, they were just like, if that's going to make you happy, okay. So, cause they knew how sad I was, you know? So we got really used to it, and it became kind of like fun. It was just like me, you, and the camera. Like, we had fun, and they stopped seeing the camera. Like, they just didn't see it. I didn't necessarily hold it right up to my face, right? I mean, I might like hold it like this, or I'd hold it like this, or maybe it was on a tripod. They thought they were talking to Judy. You know, like, if this is how we get our Judy, this is how we get our Judy. And we want our Judy, so we'll do whatever Judy wants. So talk to the camera. What camera? I'm talking to my daughter, right? So I don't expect that. That's a hard thing to get. But it often happens that if you have a good, honest, authentic relationship with somebody, and they know that that camera is there, they understand. You know, I don't know what you want to do with it, Gila, if it's just, you know, it's like, I just want this for the future, or I want you to be able to show this to my grandchildren when they get older and I'm not around. I mean, I don't know what it is, right? I don't know, or maybe you're an artist and it's part of your art. I just think usually if you're honest with people and you tell them like what this is for, it makes them feel good. You know, they trust you. I think even with my mother, like, my mother was in A Healthy Baby Girl, and then she was in Blue Vinyl, and then she was in Eckvelt at the end of the world, which is a short. And then she made me promise. It was like, no more movies, okay? Like, no more movies, and do not make a movie about me dealing with the grief of losing your father and becoming my own person and finding new friends and building a new life for myself in Westchester, because I'll kill you, right? Do not bring that camera out. And I didn't, though I really think I should have, because it was pretty amazing to watch. So I didn't bring it out in the beginning of her illness, but, you know, when it was clear that we were in hospice and we were making those decisions about the end of her life, I sort of snuck it out. I kind of brought it, and it was like she sort of pretended that it wasn't there, and I kind of pretended it wasn't there. It was hard, but I'm glad I did it.
There's also a question here on how old is Theo now?
Theo is 8, and she's in, oh my God, 3rd grade, which feels like 8th grade. Somehow it feels like the new 8th grade to me. I don't know why. Somehow it feels like it counts. I'm not sure. And she goes to PS 75 on 95th Street and West End, and she's in a dual language program. And if I can talk her into it, she might end our time together blowing her shofar. We'll see.
It would be only appropriate. What's next in this saga that you've been kind of developing?
Okay, well, it's interesting. So imagine, you know, it's 2020, it's March, it's the 3rd week of March, and I'm in lockdown. upstairs. We're in a temporary apartment down here, but we're upstairs on the 10th floor on Riverside and 84th. And it's a Sunday afternoon. And, we're starting to like, it's not pretty. And as my daughter said to me, who's going to take care of me? Because, babysitter wasn't coming. I was like, me. She said, by yourself. I was like, yes. She's like, you don't know how to take care of me by yourself. It's like, well, I'm going to have to learn, aren't I? So anyway, so there I was by myself, about to attending my very first Zoom Shiva of a good friend of mine, whose mother died of metastatic cancer the second week or third week of March 2020. So you can imagine how like complicated that was. And so this was my very first Zoom Shiva of what would become many, 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 but it was totally new. And there was like 90 people in this gallery. And there my friend was like all by herself. And I couldn't imagine like how she's gonna do this. What's a Shiva without hugs? What's a Shiva without crying on someone's shoulder? What's a Shiva without everyone packing into the room and standing on the rafters of your apartment, So she's alone, her brother and her sister-in-law and her nieces and nephews are like on another Zoom, maybe in the same apartment. I don't think so. Maybe they're in Brooklyn. She's in Manhattan. There's 90 people in the gallery. And we're all trying to figure out like, how do you do this? And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. Oh my God. Bubby was not Meshuggah. Bubby was in deep, deep grief. She wasn't crazy. She was sad. So Bubby is my grandmother, Sarah Plutzik, and my father's mother, and Sarah Plutzik Helfand. And she and my grandfather, Solomon Helfand, their 12-year-old daughter died in the flu epidemic of 1918. And I never heard about their daughter until my grandmother died when I was 11. And it turned out that her daughter, Ethel, was 12. So I was just about to become that age when Ethel died. I mean, it's like hard to fathom, like my 11-year-old self leaving my parents and like what they would have done, or my child. I just like, so my and I found this photograph buried inside of a drawer, wrapped in multiple layers of this ancient brocade kind of silk cloth, a kind of cloth I'd never seen in my life before, tied in the knots that like look like my grandmother's hands, like bereft knots. And I brought it into the kitchen and I'm standing under like our crazy, like the lights in our kitchen. I'm like, what is this? I've never seen any cloth like this. What do you think this is? And my parents were like, well, it must be Bubby's. I mean, none of us would have cloth like this. So I started to open them up. And I opened up one after another, after another, after another. And probably after 8 of these knots, these bereft knots that like looked like my grandmother's hands somehow, there was this picture and it was all sepia tone. And it was this little girl who had as much attitude as my Theo does, except looked just like me, except I look like Theo. I look at my parents and I say, did you bring me somewhere and get me dressed up in like those kind of clothes, like in an old Western? Like, where is it? What is that? And who are those people? And who's that baby? And why am I standing like there so jauntily on that guy's knee? And my mother said, that's your grandfather. And I was like, I never stood like that. It's not you. Well, who is that? Who is that? That's Bubby? Look how young she is. Who? What is this? And my father said in this very quiet voice, he said, that's my sister Ethel. I said, but Daddy, you don't have a sister. He said, no, I don't now, but I did. I was like, but you never told, I've never heard anyone talk about her. You had a sister who looked like that? Who looked like me? What do you mean? What happened to her? She died in the flu epidemic of 1918. Oh my goodness. And I didn't even know about her till I was a teenager. I was like, you didn't know about her till you were a teenager? So my father said, well, I was born 6 years after her, and I guess she didn't come up. I was like, how does this not come up? And then, I started to put things together, and I realized that when my grandfather died, years before my grandmother, not that many, I don't know, 7 maybe, I'm not sure. when I was 4. So I'm 11 when she dies. So my math is terrible. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 7 years earlier, my grandfather died. So I'm really little. And I remember distinctly that my grandmother didn't go to the funeral, which I thought was pretty weird. And, um, and that she was waiting at home with me for everyone to come back so that the Shiva could start. And she wasn't talking to anybody. Okay, she was sad, but she didn't go to my own grandfather's funeral. I wasn't invited either. And then they come back, and I just remember her saying, "So Teddy, Simon, where did you bury him? Where did you bury him?" And they say, "Mount Hebron, Mom." It was a beautiful ceremony. It was beautiful, it was a beautiful levaya, and he's at peace. And my grandmother starts screaming, "You buried him in the wrong place. He wanted to be in Staten Island. He wanted to be with Ethel. We wanted to be with Ethel. All I've ever wanted was to finally die and be with Ethel. And now I'm going to have to choose between my husband and my daughter." And my father looked shocked. And, years later, when I sort of asked him about it, I was like, wait a second. So when she said we wanted to be with Ethel, this is the Ethel? So this is the Ethel that they wanted to be with. Like, I didn't understand at the time. Clearly, no one told a 4-year-old why she was so upset, I guess. Maybe I thought she was upset about my grandpa. So my father wanted to exhume my grandfather for about 10 minutes. And then my uncle said, "You're crazy. We're not going to do it. It's done. And I'm not going to Staten Island to visit. Mom's never going to go to the cemetery. She's never been there to visit Ethel. We're not going to do this. There's many tolls. We live far away. We're not going." So my grandparents were in the wrong place, and Ethel was all by herself. And then when my I told my father, when Uncle Si dies, we're going to exhume them and bring them to Ethel. And that was always this fantasy that I had. And none of that worked. But this year, it wasn't until, and then I let it go. But it wasn't until our pandemic that I realized that not only did my grandmother grieve all those years, but she never had any kind of period of grief, that there was no Zoom Shiva. From all my research is starting to tell me, that they told everybody, unless you live in a huge house with ventilation, or I guess you live somewhere where you could have an outdoor Shiva, you can't have Shiva and you can't be with people. And so my grandmother grieved by herself. And I don't think she ever stopped grieving. And she wound up making all these crazy rules for herself to keep her from grieving. And the rest of her life, everyone was devoted to helping my grandmother not feel pain, which is not a normal way to live. And if you do that, you are sure to bequeath your children the incredible ability of living with terrible pain and never talking about it and never processing it in their own way. And all that pain could be very different, but I think the long-term impact of unresolved grief, which is what the New York Times calls what is going to happen to so many people because of COVID, is very real, because I've seen it. So I am now making what I think might be a short film called Good Morning Ethel, Mourning. And it's somehow about reuniting my grandparents with my aunt in whatever way we can, though exhumation is looking more and more impossible. And tomorrow is the 104th anniversary of her death. And Friday is the 104th anniversary of Ethel's burial in Baron Hirsch Cemetery in Staten Island. And we went right before Rosh Hashanah, Theo and myself, to pay the traditional call to the grave. It's called Kever Avos. It's like going to the graves of your foremothers or your forefathers. And we went to Ethel, and I brought photographs of my grandparents and all of the children and the grandchildren that they had. And I introduced her to my daughter, and Theo played the chauffeur for her. And we were told, and we didn't really quite find the right grave because it's very hard to find where it is, and they put all the children together, but we threw little coins down, which we were told to do, and M&Ms, because you leave candy and coins. And Theo kept saying, are we going to dig her up now? I was like, no, we're not digging her up. But we did dig up some dirt, which I have in a plastic bag over there. And on Sunday, we're going to go visit my grandparents for the first time. And I'm going to introduce them to Theo. And we're going to sprinkle this earth from Ethel's kever. Hopefully it's close enough. It's as close as anyone's ever gotten, for sure. And we're going to tell them that we're trying to figure out how to bring them together, or at least through another movie or something. And so I think it's a short, and it might be like maybe like a 1 hour investigation, like for This American Life, into the long-term impact of unresolved grief. And maybe even, I've never done it, like a live cinema event where you make all the research very transparent and you show the footage and you get Alicia Spiegels to play live fiddle and do all that kind of stuff. And you have your world premiere, at the JCC.
The only place to have it. That's really, really beautiful. And I think exploring trauma that way is also an important element within, I think, a lot more that's there. I want one more question here before we sign off. But Sheila asked that it would be great to know about your mother's reinvention of herself after your father's death.
Well, one of the things I'm so proud of about my mother that I also didn't make that movie, and I really wish I had, and it would have been called My Mother, the President, was that after I made A Healthy Baby Girl, which was like this 5-year video diary about my relationship with my mom as we navigated through our experience with cancer from DES exposure. When that came out, all of the people at her shul were like, Florence, we had no idea. You're the most brave, most courageous, most amazing woman. We love you so much. And you're an environmentalist. And we want you to be in charge of the environment for you, our sisterhood. And then my mother called me up and she said, now look what you made me do. Like, I'm the president of the environmental club. I don't know from any of this. They think I know things I don't know. It's your fault. You're in charge. You're building the curriculum. You're doing all of it. You got me into this, Judith Helfand. You're going to get me out of this. And I was like, fine, don't worry. I got you covered. But then they were like, you're so good at this. You're going to become president of our shul. So, in her 60s, my mom became the president of her shul. And it was the best thing that ever happened to her. Like, she really came into her own. And, it's just, she was so proud of herself. And she said, can you believe it? I didn't know I could do this. I didn't know I could write these speeches, and I could give a Devar Torah, and I could be in charge of, getting the newsletter out, and I could do all of these things and help keep the books and get the first woman to be the rabbi of this, of this Shabrach in a shul. Like, I'm proud of myself. So my mother really came into her own, and then they moved, and it wasn't such a great thing. And then they moved again, which was better. And then my father died like within months of their moving. So she hadn't even unpacked. She had nothing on the walls. And she looked at me and she said, I went from living with my parents at 18 to living with your father. And I've never lived apart from him. And we've been married, for almost 60 years, I think, maybe more. And I've never been apart. I didn't go to college. I didn't have a dorm room. I didn't live alone. I never had roommates. I never did anything without him. And I don't even know how to do this. And then she just looked at me and with the bravest face, she said, I'm really lonely. And she just started to cry. I don't even know how to be lonely. I don't know how to be alone. Like, I lived through your father almost dying and almost being alone. And even then, it wasn't as lonely as this is, because I knew he would pull through. I can't even feel his breath anymore. I don't know how to do this. And I said, yeah, I know what you mean. I live alone. And she's like, you don't know what I mean. Your being single is not like my being alone. Okay. So, in the next 2 days before, like at some point during this period that we were still in the house with her, with my mother, like Shiva was over, we stayed a little bit longer. She met somebody downstairs and she comes up and she says, I met somebody in the laundry room. She's really nice. I really liked her. She gave me her number. Do you think I should call? And I was like, sure. So later that day, she says, okay, I'm going to call. And then she calls this person who lived in the building, and like they were talking, and it was like, you know, who knows what my mother would have been if life was different and times were different, but she was like a teenager on like a flirtatious date, you know, and like, she's like, do you like the movies? I like the movies. Would you want to go to the movies and maybe have a bite to eat? Like, not now. I mean, I have to get through like the next week or two, but like, it would just be nice to know, like maybe in like a couple of weeks. And she said, sure. And then the next day, my mother went to the library to get a library card, and then she met somebody else. And then this person called my mother, and like, they became the best of friends. And so my mother, like, she found Mahjong ladies who were Jewish. She found the non-Jewish Mahjong ladies, which were like, it's a very funny divide. She joined a bereavement group, and they became really good friends, and they were all friends for almost 2 years. And then the lady who was in charge of the bereavement group, who was 80, like this fabulous social worker, she said, ladies, you're just using this as an excuse to do something before you go to lunch. Just go to lunch. You don't need me anymore. You're fine. And women are starting to come to this group, and they're talking about things that you don't even want to deal with anymore. And you're not so nice. So I just think that you should all go to lunch. And if you want to call yourselves bereavement lunch ladies, fine, but you're like, you're over it. You're having a life now. Like, become friends. You're friends. You don't need me. I'm 80. I have to deal with people who are really sad. You're not as sad as you used to be. And so then she had them, and, you know, and the other thing that she did that was amazing was my sister-in-law was going back to work, and we had my nephew, and he was a little kid, and he needed to be like picked up to go to Hebrew school, or picked up from school to go to activities and stuff. And my mother basically just said, I will pick him up. I will do this every day. I will, wherever he is, I will make him dinner. I will help start his homework. And when you come home from work, I'll have dinner for all of us. And so, and they were like, Mom, you can't do that. And she said, oh, yes, I can. It'll be great for me. I need the structure. So she became like the greatest friends with my little nephew, who really grew up with her. And she became the kind of confidant that most young men never get in a grandma. And he was her only grandson. And they were just buddies in this beautiful way. So she had a really beautiful, she created a really nice life for herself. And yeah, I was so proud of her.
Judith, thank you so much.
Sheila wants to say something.
That's a wonderful story. It's enough material for a film, for a book, for an article about aging, alone, losing your partner, or just being an older person. And I deal a lot with that with senior groups. You've done a fabulous job. I'm deeply touched.
Thank you. I'm sorry I didn't make the movie. I mean, I've thought about trying to do a series of shorts called the Bereavement Chronicles, and each one would be like somebody going out to do, like, I remember when my mother went out for lunch by herself and sat by herself for the first time without a cell phone. She just did it, right? She, you know, then afterwards she called me up. She said, I ate by myself in a restaurant, and I just ate by myself. And it was really nice. It wasn't horrible. I feel good. I think I could do this. Or I went to a movie by myself, and then I went out for dinner, and the sky didn't fall. And then I got home, like, you know, so I was trying to find like branded content. Like, I was trying to find someone to pay for that, so that there would be an interesting reason to do it. Like Starbucks, why don't you guys sponsor, like, or the movie theater, like, can we have a movie? Is there a movie theater? Maybe we should do this at the JCC, which is basically you're coming by yourself. It's called Alone Together. This is the first movie that you're going to see on your own without your partner since you've been bereaved. But the only thing that you're going to know is everybody else in the room that you don't know is also bereaved, but you're doing it by yourself. It's like a new take on Alone Together. Like, and the same thing with, like, you're going out for dinner, you're going to sit by yourself. You cannot use your cell phone, just have to sit and eat. And everybody else is there too. And then maybe at the end, there's like dessert all together, and people go, how was it for you? What do you think? Do you like this idea?
I love it. I think that's what a community center is all about. I think.
Okay, so let's work on that. I need more jobs.
Good, good. We need more. We need more programs. Most importantly, we need to bring everyone together. And I think
Yes.
that this
And
is,
by the way, is synagogue spelled Cinegogue? Do you get it? You said this is your synagogue. Is that what you meant?
sin, like a sin.
No, not like sin, like cinema,
Like cinema. I like that too.
synagogue.
It's yeah. That's
Okay.
that's great. Well, we'll change Forgive Me Film-a-thon to the synagogue program.
The synagogue program. Okay, can we save this chat?
Oh, this is all saved.
Okay, great. So listen, everyone that's there, if you're interested in any of the things that I talked about, there's room and opportunity to work with my team, or if you're from another city and you want to bring this to your JCC, you could go to Love and Stuff, the film, I think, or you could just email me. I should know that there's a place. So if you go to Love and Stuff, the film, the website, you could join our newsletter, or you could email me. I'll put it in the chat. It's Judith at Blue Vinyl. I still like that film, so I use it, bluevinyl.org. Okay, so thank you. This has been so nice. And
Thank you, folks. Thank you for joining. Thank you for taking time during your Yom Kippur. And this is really
let me just see if she'll do it for 1 sec. Just Theo, please. Theo, come on. You and Noah, just come and do it. Hurry. They have to go. Hurry.
You have to end the service with a shofar blowing.
Come on. Hurry. Come here. Just over here. Just you do it, please. They want it. Come on. Both of us, you do it. Okay. Come on. Hurry.
Noah, you do it.
No, come on. Show them how to do it.
I know how to do it.
Okay, just do it. You do it first.
Noah, do it.
No, you do it first. You do
Noah
it.
does it first.
Yeah, but you can't share it then. Just do it. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah.
I think we're all covered.
You want to do it, Noah? Come.
Covers us for the shofar blowing.
Go. Here we go. Okay, say goodbye. Say Happy New Year. Say Happy New Year.
Folks, the film is available now till the end of this program. I think it's available till tonight. So tell your friends, and of course, Till Kingdom Come is in person. We also screened the film this past week, Last Flight Home, which is another fantastic film that very much relates to our Forgive Me Film-a-thon and everything we're doing here through Film for the High Holidays. Shana Tova, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
And thank you, Isaac, for being such a beautiful leader and a wonderful community leader and a community member and a cine leader. You're really terrific. Thank you so much.
And a sinner.
Who isn't? Let me tell you. Okay. Bye, everybody. Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.